I call this meeting of the Herkimer County Legislature to order, and I'd like to ask Mr. Decker to lead us in the pledge of
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Hartman.
Here.
Rose. Here. Schrader.
Here.
Manine. Here. Johnson.
Here.
Hendricks.
Here.
Hyde.
Here.
Brzezinski.
Here.
Mano. Smith.
Here.
Bono.
Here.
Ackerman.
Here.
Kaplinski.
Here.
Corse.
Here.
Russell.
Here.
Shaw.
Here.
Weekly.
Here.
16.
Pursuant to Rule 8, are there any objections or corrections to the minutes of the January 3rd, 2012 meeting? Any? If there are none, I'll order them all approved. Reading in full of claims disallowed by the auditor and presented by audit by the legislature. There's nothing on the desk. I will now dispense with the regular session to allow for a presentation by Manning Insurance and Bill Van Gorder and company.
Good evening. I'm Bill Van Gorder with Manning Insurance, and actually tonight I have Susan O'Rourke from NYMER. Susan is, I'm going to turn it over to her, but she's here to talk about NYMER and the return of capital check and some of the things that your insurance company is actively doing. And at this time, I guess I would just like to take a moment and, on behalf of our agency, thank you, everybody here at the county, on behalf of your support and continued confidence that you have in our agency. So I thank you.
Chair, members of the legislature, thank you again for allowing us time on your agenda. I think this is the 4th year in a row we've asked to come back and to have time on your agenda, and we appreciate you allowing us to do so. I'm sure that doesn't have anything to do with the fact that we bring a check with us when we come back. So, as you know, 2011 has been a tough year for New York State local governments. The weather-related losses have been significant for local communities. We've had flooding, and not just one hurricane, but 2 hurricanes. We've suffered tornadoes, earthquakes, early snowstorms, and on top of that, local governments have had to deal with shrinking revenues and tightening budgets, and a new thing thrown into the mix, the thing called the property tax cap. So it has been one of the toughest years local entities have seen in New York State for quite some time. And through all of that, NYMER has been there for our insureds. We've had the 4th year of a rate decrease, and that includes 2012, when many other insurance carriers are looking for a rate increase. We've been there to pay losses, including those for Irene and Lee. 1 week after Irene, we were in Herkimer County presenting them with a $1.2 million claim check. And between the 2 storms, NYMER anticipates we'll pay approximately $8.3 million in flood-related claims. Even with decreasing premiums and significant claim payments, NYMER continues its capital return program. By the end of 2012, we'll have returned $10 million to our subscribers over a 4-year period. All subscribers that have renewed with NYMER during this 4-year period will have received their full capital contribution returned to them. Even with this, the NYMER board continues to research other ways to return investment in the NYMER program, over $52 million, back to its members. NYMER continues to have a healthy surplus, and we'd like to find a way to return that to our subscribers so that you can continue to use it at the local level. So hopefully, we'll ask to be back on your agenda in 2013. But for tonight, I'm here with Bill Van Gorder, who we're very happy to partner with in Herkimer County and services our clients in Herkimer County and other surrounding counties. And we appreciate all that Manning and Bill Van Gorder does for us. But we have a check tonight for $30,111.11. So hopefully you can find use for that. Thank you.
comment period by residents, and I would ask that you keep your comments to 5 minutes apiece with a total of 30 minutes. And I'll first call on Mr. Joe Chilali and his subject matter is committees. Come up front.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. It's been a while since I've talked to all of you. First of all, a couple of weeks ago, much of this is directed to you, Mr. Chairman. A few weeks ago, as you took the head of this body, I basically congratulated you, and I wished you a lot of luck. I was hoping that maybe your leadership would be a little bit different than what we've had in the past. Unfortunately, what I saw with your decision on the committee assignments leaves a lot of questions and concern. With four of the legislators being placed on only one committee, even though it is your choice, it doesn't seem like a wise use of experience on a lot of the members of these legislators, especially one of them being my representative, who now is only on one committee, and I think could have had a greater say being involved in more than one. One of the greatest things that I hope for everybody in this legislature, all 17 of you, that you all work together. I mean, that is really the utmost importance to me, that for the better good of the people of this county, that you put your issues, the past issues behind you, and you try to do what is right for everyone. With that said, I hope that if there is any way, whether it's tonight or in the future, that your decision could be changed, and maybe an amendment to the rules of the legislature, where these four individuals who now are on one committee can possibly be on multiple. You have talent in each one of them. I would think that you could use a lot of their experience and benefits to the greater good of the county. I would hope that your initial speech, Mr. Chairman, which seemed to be very inclusive, is sincere and genuine, because a decision based on the committee assignments seems very divisive, and I would hope that can be changed. Thank you.
I'd like to call Carl Streeter, and his subject name is opportunities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. I hope this is a prosperous and successful and eventful New Year. I'd like to start it by volunteering a few seconds of my 300 seconds to pay homage and tribute to our veterans. I understand this organization had been approached by a veterans group to hold a moment of silence at these meetings, and for whatever reason, your wisdom led it denied. That was denied then. So I would ask you to remember now the men and women of this country who sacrificed their limbs, their personalities, their very minds, and in many cases their lives. Let's remember the families who suffered along with them. I'd ask you all to rise, bow your head, and join me in a moment of respectful remembrance and tribute to these men. Thank you. Thank you. Further hope that you didn't find that too distasteful or disruptive, and that you might consider including that in your meetings as a regular part of the open ceremonies. Opportunities in 2012. One comes to mind, came up in one of the committee meetings when Mrs. Scanlon presented the problem she's having with Meals on Wheels, if I remember correctly. About a $47,000 bill was all that was involved in providing Meals on Wheels services to at least 9 people who are waiting. The $47,000 would have been a complete 15-person route. She described her clients as being in the main over 85, with great disabilities, and earning great benefits by having meals cooked for them so they don't run the risk of scalding at the stove and so on and so forth. And that $47,000 shortfall that Mrs. Scanlon is suffering Reminds me of the $47,000, $48,000, $50,000 that you so graciously and generously awarded to Mr. Casal out in Cooperstown a year and a half ago. This was going to buy certain benefits for the
Mr.
committee.
Chairman,
Yes.
this is a point of order. We can't have these statements made that are incorrect. We did not, as this legislator, award anything to Mr. Casal. Nothing.
I agree.
Then how did he get the $47.50 a month? What was that? Who was that for?
That was through the IDA, Mr.
And do you not support the IDA? County money went from you to the IDA.
And how does
to
this
Mr.
refer to your
Casal.
subject matter of opportunities?
That is an opportunity to help Mrs. Scanlon by finding $47,000. We've got $12 million in reserve. I would think that this is what is that, 47, 12? That's
I
a
also
1%.
want to point of order. Mr. Streeter has mentioned the problems with the Meals on Wheels, the 9. That problem is all cleared up. There is nobody on a waiting list. Mrs. Scanlon took care of
Glad to
that
hear
like
that.
I said she would. That other night, I told you that it would ebb and flow, and that's the way that program works. So there is nobody in need of Meals on Wheels.
This,
a point of order.
this is resident comment, okay?
Okay. That's what I wanted. I
I
wanted to say
agree with
we
you,
can correctly.
Mr. Smith, and
But like Mr.
Yeah, whose 3 minutes is it, his or mine?
Sorry, you'll get your 5
He
minutes.
is making statements
That's not
that are not
correct.
true.
I understand that.
Is it not true that Mrs. Scanlon said there were 9 on the waiting list?
She did, but there is.
And all I'm suggesting, something has happened in the last 4 days. I'm delighted to hear that. I feel better knowing that 9 old folks aren't suffering because of want for Meals on Wheels. I'm just carrying the comparison of the $47,000 to other $47,000 that you've seen fit to spend by way of the IDA perhaps, on something that hasn't yielded what we think we would have ought to.
Please continue constructively. Thank you.
I'm trying to point out a constructive way to help, and Mr. Smith is telling me that there's no longer that need for that help. I'm delighted to hear that. Mr. Chilali has talked about the obvious domination of committee assignments that really does you an injustice. You do yourself a disservice when you so heavily weight these important assignments. The public is not blind to the lack of balance here, the lack of opportunity for dissenters to be at least heard. You're shutting them up, they can't even be heard. How much more time do I have, sir?
About 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. The other thing I'd mention is the vote that you're going to be taking later on this evening to bring suit against the village of Herkimer. It boggles my mind that you think you could impose your will on the village. The village would seem to me, correct me if I'm wrong, all of you experts, that they have a right to determine their own destiny, to determine their own zoning laws. And it's unfortunate that they have to go to this extreme and create a special zoning law to prohibit the building of the jail. But it seems to me, anyhow, that's within their right and privilege to do that. And I urge you not to pass that resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Continue. We now go to communications. Communications received by the legislature and committees to which they have been referred to are listed on the agenda. Does any member of the legislature request mention of any particular communication? Yes, sir, of course.
Number 5, somebody's filed an intent to file a claim against the county.
It's in the matter of Joseph Wright against the county of Herkimer.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, this is new pursuant to Rule 6, number 8, reports of standing committees. I'll ask any of the committee chair people if they want to make reports or remarks on the progress on any issue of the committee. So is there any chairman wishing to make any reports? Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to report on the committee meeting of the Human Resources Committee that was held on Thursday, January 12th. with all the committee members were present, plus most of the members of the legislature were in attendance. There were 10 agenda items that we discussed, 1 from mental health, 3 from the Office of the 80, 4 from public health, and 2 from Department of Social Services. All 10 items were thoroughly reviewed, questions were asked by all the members present, and answers were received. All topics were unanimously passed by the committee and to be voted on by the full body this evening. I also would like to report that no one has contacted me since the Thursday meeting with further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mr. Russell.
Well, Mr. Chairman, you'll see within our resolution packet, we have various things that the Ways and Means Committee has discussed. But one of the things at issue now is how the state is going to handle Medicaid, and so we're still looking at that to see how the program might develop within the next few years. I think at this time, if we could have Mr. Wallace give us a little preview of what the governor hopes to accomplish within his tenure in regards to the Medicaid issue and what needs to go to the state legislature for a vote. So with permission, Mr. Wallace could discuss it. I think it would be to the benefit of all of us here.
Yeah, I think we all know we've been talking the Medicaid issue probably since the mid-'90s. A very over 55% of our property tax goes towards Medicaid. I think most counties were very pleased with the governor's announcement. I think his willingness to put Medicaid on the table was very important, I think, for all the taxpayers in not only Herkimer County but New York State. $54 billion will be spent next year in New York State on Medicaid. It's more than Texas and California combined, so it's a tremendous expense for the taxpayers of the county and also the state. His proposal would be, I think everybody realizes a few years ago, back in '05, for '06, the growth was capped. We're looking at around $340,000 to $360,000 a year on the 3% increase. What they're talking about doing is we would pay that for the 12-13 year. The 13-14 year, a third would be withdrawn, and so on and so forth. So by the time of 2015, we would no longer pay any increase in Medicaid. Again, for Herkimer County, that's around $340,000 to $360,000. I think the point, that I think we all realize our local senators on a bipartisan basis, with our local assemblymen on a bipartisan basis, also have on the table an 8-year takeover of the Medicaid program. So when you're seeing both the governor and the legislative side, like Senators Skelos and Assemblyman Silver, you've got both sides, both Democrats and Republicans, working together to say that something has to happen with Medicaid. I think we'll finally see something happen with Medicaid, which is going to be, I think, a big help to county taxpayers.
Thank you.
I mean, every year we pay about $350,000 extra over and above. That's been our 3%. What is it now, Jim, that we pay per year? About
13.5 million.
Okay. A few years ago, and why this is important, especially to the villages and the towns, why this is important, because a few years ago we had to take that 1% sales tax and give it back to the county to be able to pay these bills, which is about $600,000. I mean, we could see if this takeover could happen, this 8-year takeover, and we don't have these bills, and they don't add anything else to us, we could see the possibility of this legislature helping out the towns and villages again with some of the sales tax revenue. We can't do it now because our bills are still so high. So it's important that you get to your towns, your villages, cities, ask them to write their letters to their state senators and assemblymen, and let's see if we can get this done. The state can take this right over. It'd be wonderful for everybody, and it would certainly help the taxpayers within Herkimer County a lot, because most of our taxes go to this entitlement and other entitlements within within our budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any other chair? Mr. Weekly.
Resolution number 12, which is brought forward by the Committee on Highways, approves to spend over $3 million for 6 county road projects to be completed this year.
Thank you, Mr. Weekly. Any other chair? Mr. Shaw.
We haven't had a meeting yet to any issue come up as a dog thing here tonight, and that's more or less a follow-up on DEC's ruling, but I did stop today and talk to Ken there at the sewer plant, and I think it would be a good idea when the weather warms up a little more that we do a walkthrough there, because they are looking at making some capital expenditures, and it would give us a little better idea what we're rubber stamping. Their board approves it, and the money just flows through us, so we'll try to arrange that in the future.
Anyone else? Mr. Hendricks.
Public safety has got one, most of them have been addressed by Mr. Russell's committee, but public safety has got one Vincent needed a coroner's appointment whereas we're just correcting the resolution. He was appointed coroner, and the time frame he has to run for election next fall, he did not fill the vacancy.
Mr. Chairman, I have a problem hearing him with the noise. Point of order.
Could you repeat that, Mr. Hendricks? There was no...
Probably not the same way he said it.
It's okay.
No, it just, Vincent Eady was appointed coroner. The resolution read that to fill the unexpired term goes beyond the next election, so he will run for election to set the correct statute to run for election in the fall.
Thank you. Anyone else? That was painless. All right, I appreciate the comments, and I hope this helps both the public and in the room and those on video land. All right, we'll continue with consent agenda, and will clerk please read the title of each resolution on the consent agenda.
Number 8 is the Ways and Means Committee transferring funds. Number 9 is Human Resources and Ways and Means renewing the contract for funding for childhood-led poison prevention screening services. 10 is Human Resources, Ways and Means amending Resolution 301, which authorizes a contract with the state for funding for children with special health care needs. And number 11 is Ways and Means amending the 2011 budget in connection with some mass transportation funding.
Do I have a motion? Mr. Rosen.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I certainly make a motion for the consent agenda. I would like to make one comment on number 8. On the bottom of the page, which is a $23,000 disbursement. We didn't talk about that in one of our meetings, I don't think. This is money that's going to our workman's compensation fund that we have within the budget to pay for the county plan fund. So it's the reimbursements, I'm sorry, not a reimbursement, it's the remainder of the share that we owe to the plan. There's no extra money here. It's just that, again, it's the remainder of the share that we owe coming out of that workers' comp administration budget.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. May I have a second? Mr. Poplinski, is there any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mrs. Rose.
just a point that, excuse me for not waiting to be recognized. When the committees meet, we don't have these resolutions in front of us. So for certain, like when I reviewed this, I thought this was an adjustment to the 2011 budget and evening things out. I mean, this is, we got the memo, but it's not really telling me, I don't believe, that this is adjustments to the 2011 budget. Can I clarify that that's what this is?
Correct. Well, correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Need a second?
I did receive the second. Mr.
Where is it?
All those, I'm sorry, again, ayes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion, resolution carries. Number 12.
The Highway Committee approving projects under Article 6, Section 116 of the Highway Law.
This resolution designates work to be done with county road fund monies during the year 2012 for 6 highway projects listed. May I have a motion? Mr. Weekly, second by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? Mrs. Rose.
While we received a report from the chairman of the Highway Committee, I think it would be very important for the people in the room, and as you mentioned, video people, to know the various projects that we will be addressing with this. I think it would be helpful.
Well, they're listed on your...
I'm talking about the public that are in the room.
I understand that. I'm saying they're listed. Should we can use them? I'm sorry, right here. One project's South Shore Road for $1 million, 3/4 of a mile. Emmonsburg Road in town of Salisbury for $650,000 for 3.5 miles. Hardscrabble Road, 2.68 miles for $750,000. Hurricane Road, town of Norway, 1.85 miles for $250,000. Murphy Road over Crum Creek, it's a bridge deck replacement for $250,000. And Hawthorne Road over Sterling Creek in the town of Schuyler, and it's for engineering services for the bridge replacement, it's at $130,000. Mrs. Rose.
I think it also would be beneficial if we understood how these projects surface to the top. Regional or whatever that approach might be. I think citizens, everyone has a road that they think should be taken care of, and I think it would be helpful if they understood.
We can do that at committee level, or Mr. Corse, would you want?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As chairman of the Highway Committee, I called the Highway Committee meeting in December. This is something we do annually so that the county highway superintendent can present us with a list of potential projects for the expenditure of CHIPS monies that we have that can be spent on reconstruction projects. The committee went over his recommendations. He went in detail on what was involved with each one of these, and the committee said that these projects would be the ones for the coming year. Herkimer County, the highway superintendent has the county broken up into 4 or 5 different segments. And this area concentration this year is in this portion of the county where these projects are listed. So these projects also, by approving them now, moving them along, if right-of-way is needed, it facilitates the acquisition of right-of-way, and also putting bid specs together enables us to go out early in the bidding process, and it helps get better bids. So this has been how this has been done now for quite a while.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mrs. Rose.
Mr. Corse alluded to. I shared this with someone, and they asked me whether our workforce would be doing this work or whether we would be contracting it out. Mr. Corse mentioned RFPs. Is there any general sense of whether our staff are doing these projects? Are they too large for, who will be doing it?
Some are done by the county employees, and some are subbed out, and, you know, certain facets are subbed out depending on what the scope of the project is. Mr. Brzezinski.
Mr. Chairman, can you tell me, on that Hardscrabble Road, was that affected by the windmill project? Does anybody know? Was that?
Mr. Shaw, okay. Mr. Shaw says no, but I was going to defer to Mark.
Yeah, I'm Mark Nagel, Deputy Superintendent. That section of Hardscrabble Road was not used by the windmills. No, it was not.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Russell?
Well, I was just going to say, in regards to the windmills, we had it within the contract that the windmill people had to fix the roads if they did any damage to them, and certainly our engineers were on them continuously to make sure that things were fixed, and our lawyer was certainly looking at things. Is there anything Mr. Malone could tell us in regards to any of the issues in regards to the roads?
Nothing has arisen recently, so it has not needed my attention so far. If there are any questions to be resolved, I'm not aware of them.
Anyone else with comments? Mr. Shaw.
The section of Hardscrabble that they're refurbishing, there's no way you could have taken trucks on that road with the shape it's in. So they chose not to use that route.
Thank you. Anyone else? Motion made, second, discussion had. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution carries. Number 13.
Human Resources, Ways and Means, amending 2011 budget in connection with funding for the Department of Social Services.
This resolution amends the 2011 budget in connection with the receipt of additional funding for the Department of Social Services. May I have a motion? Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The resolution passes. Number 14.
Human Resources, Ways and Means, authorizing acceptance Acceptance of grant from State Office of Community Renewal totaling $750,000 to establish housing rehab program for seniors.
This resolution authorizes the acceptance of a grant from the State Office of Homes and Community Renewal for Senior Housing Rehabilitation Program in Herkimer County. May I have a motion? Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Kapinski, Hendricks, and Hyde. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, Mr. Corsi.
I hope as this $750,000 program is administered, that the money gets to the very needy, necessary people, so that it isn't cost overruns for contractors or anything like that. The lion's share gets to really help people stay in their own home, which the best investment Herkimer County can have is when older people stay in their own home.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Mrs. Rose.
Mr. Chairman, when this was brought up at the Human Resource Committee meeting, I did ask if there was a waiting list or if these were going to be fresh applications. I don't know that we knew at the time, and I hope that there'll be some press release or something on this so the citizens are aware.
There usually is a press release. I know Mary's done it.
And knowing whether there's actually capacity for this, because in some cases, I'm not sure what the answer was when asked if there's already a huge list.
Mr. Smith.
Mr. Chairman, there is a waiting list, and they're going over that waiting list right now to determine how many families and homes they can repair. I have a report from Mary on how this money will be spent. Do you want that?
If you so, yeah.
The program activity is $615,000. The delivery, that's the people that do the work, will get $85,000. The administration costs for the home, whatever it's called, home ownership center will get $20,000 for administration, and Two County Planning gets $30,000 for their administration. That's a total of $750,000.
Thank you, Mr. Anyone else?
Very good question. What does Two County Planning do to get $30,000?
They, I think they apply for the loan.
And administer the grant also.
Administer the loan once it's awarded, the grant.
So the administrators of it?
Yes.
Write the grants.
Thank you. Any other comments, Mr. Harper?
There's another administration line for $20,000. Who's that for?
I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, you said the $20,000 was for the homeownership?
Yeah.
Was it, am I correct?
Yeah.
$20,000?
That's to administrate it, as well as the two county?
Yes. There's two administrative groups. The one administrative group does the work and looks over the people that are doing the work in the homes.
Mr. Wallace?
I just want to reiterate, the home ownership centers, they actually watching the projects and the overall administration of the programs done by Two County Planning.
That's correct.
Thank you. Any other comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Resolution passes. Number 15.
Human Resources, Ways and Means authorizing contracts in connection with implementation of the housing rehab program.
This resolution approves contracts with the Home Ownership Center and Herkimer Oneida County comprehensive planning in connection with the implementation of the senior housing rehabilitation program. Motions. Mr. Smith, second by Mrs. Minnie and Mr. Hendricks. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The resolution passes. Number 16.
Human Resources, Ways and Means staffing change in the Department of Social Services.
This resolution amends the salary schedule to establish a position of registered nurse in the Department of Social Services. May I have a motion? Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? I'm sorry. First one. Ms. Levine, call the roll.
Manine.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Hyde.
Yes.
Brzezinski.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bono.
Yes.
Ackerman.
Yes.
Kaplinski.
Yes.
Corse.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Weekly.
Yes.
Hartman.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
16.
16, motion. Resolution passes. Number 17.
Human Resources, Ways and Means staffing change in the public health nursing service.
This resolution amends the salary schedule to delete the position of registered nurse in the public health nursing service and to make an adjustment for a position of account clerk. May I have a motion? Mr. Smith. Second by Mrs. Manine. Any more discussion? Mrs. Rose.
I know that this was discussed at the Human Resource Committee meeting, and I'm trying to remember, and this is because of the adjustment in long-term care, is what it's saying here, one position of the account clerk in long-term care, and it's to delete one there and establish one in public health. I sent a communication to Mr. Wallace with a question about the status of our CHA, and of course that's long-term care, and I wonder if new information on the way the Department of Health is going to be addressing CHA and CHA licensing would have any impact on a move such as this. Would we go forward with something like this if there has to be a change or even a moderate change in where we're progressing on the CHA and the long-term care program?
I think it needs to be addressed at the committee level. I think Mr. Smith is aware of that, and that's scheduled at the next committee.
My point is we're deleting an item from a program that's impacted by that new information. I'm wondering if this should be tabled.
I believe this should move forward.
We should move forward.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Roll call.
Call the roll.
Weekly.
Yes.
Hartman.
No, I'd rather wait and see what happens.
Rose.
No, at this point.
Schrader.
Yes.
Manine.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Hyde.
Yes.
Krasinski.
No.
Smith.
Yes.
Bono.
Yes.
Ackerman.
Yes.
Kaplinski.
Yes.
Corse.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
13 yes votes.
Resolution passes. Number 18.
Education, Ways and Means approving agreement for architect for renovation of science labs and roof replacement at the college.
This resolution approves award of a contract for architectural services in connection with the renovation of science labs and roof replacement project at the Herkimer County Community College. May I have a motion? Mr. Hendricks, second by Mr. Russell, Mr. Weekly. Any discussion? Mr.
Chairman,
Russell.
I'd just like to say that Mr. Manos been pretty ill the last few days. He certainly would have been here to explain this, but we did have a meeting in regards to this. They hired the architect, SC Arch in Albany, New York. It's a $2.6 million project, of which is going to be 50% from the state, and normally it would be 50% from the college. The college went out and raised, at our last meeting, all but of about $200,000 of that $1.3 million. And this legislature has said in the previous discussion that we would give them up to $200,000 to make this project work. So I know that we're very happy in regards to the work that the foundation has done at the college and the administration at the college has done. This is technically our responsibility as legislators to make sure that these buildings are kept in repair. And I just can't say enough how thankful I am, especially for my taxpayers, that they don't have to come up with a huge bill to be able to pay for these things that have to be done. These buildings are, getting older, and the college has just done a wonderful job along with the foundation, in raising this money, and I just want to applaud.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. That's what it's about, partnerships, and we applaud the college and the foundation. Anyone else? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nays? Resolution will pass. Number 19.
Human Resources, Ways and Means authorizing contracts in connection with flexible funds for family services plan in the Department of Social Services.
This resolution authorizes a contract with the agencies listed in connection with the Herkimer County Department of Social Services Flexible Funds for Family Services Plan. May I have a motion? Mr. Smith, second by Mr. Hendricks. Any discussion? All
Mr.
those in
Chairman?
favor? Yes, Mr. Corse.
Mr. Seymour can correct me if I'm wrong, but when you administer these funds, these were mandated to provide these kind of services. Rather than create a bureaucracy of our own, we find private organizations that can provide these services. And that's what this contract does. It contracts with these private entities to provide these mandated services that we're forced to provide for people to be on 18th. Correct? That's
Correct.
Correct, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Anyone else with comment? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. The resolution passes. Number 19. Oh, I'm sorry, 20.
Ways and Means and Public Safety Emergency Management amending budget in connection with funding of the District Attorney's Office.
This resolution amends the 2012 budget in connection with receipt of funding from the YWCA for the Mohawk Valley for the law enforcement coordinator's position in the District Attorney's Office. May I have a motion? Mr. Hendricks, second by Mr. Russell. Anyone else? Discussion? Mrs. Rose.
I didn't think to ask this. Can we understand what this individual does? Appreciate why the grant is so important to us.
Mr. Carpenter's here. Would you like to comment?
Chairman, yes, the law enforcement coordinator, who is typically stationed down at the Child Advocacy Center, is in charge of maintaining communication with all of the area law enforcement departments, gathering the information, gathering the reports, so that the multidisciplinary team can meet and discuss each and every case, and he coordinates the gathering of that information for the district attorney's office.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Mr. Russell, did you want to?
No, I was just going to mention that Mr. Carpenter was here.
You're on top.
Mr.
Anyone else? Mr. Cordes.
I believe, you correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of this is with child molestation cases? A big portion of emphasis of this?
The greatest portion of it is with all sexual offenses occurring in Herkimer County, the greatest emphasis on child sexual assault. Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Resolution will pass. 21.
Public Safety Emergency Management, Ways and Means, authorizing amendment of Homeland Security Grant under Law Enforcement Terrorism Prevention Program.
This resolution approves amendment of the FY09 Homeland Security Grant under the Law Enforcement Terrorism Prevention Program. Motion by Mr. Hyde, second by Mr. Hendricks. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed, nay. Resolution carries. 23.
County Properties approving sale of parcel acquired by in-run tax foreclosures.
This resolution authorizes an agreement with Mohawk Valley Consulting Associates to provide an employee assistance program. I'm sorry. Oops. 22. Yes. This resolution approves the sale of county-owned tax-acquired property listed. Roll call. Okay. Mrs. Lawrence. I'm sorry, I need a motion. Mr. Weekly, second by Mr. Poplinski, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Ackerman. Any discussion? Okay, now roll call.
Schrader.
Yes.
Manine.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Hyde.
Yes.
Brzezinski.
Yes.
Smith.
Yes.
Bono.
Yes.
Ackerman.
Yes.
Poplinski.
Yes.
Horst.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Weekly.
Yes.
16.
The resolution passes. Mr.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hartman.
Hold on.
Yes.
Hartman.
We didn't finish.
Rose.
Yes.
Okay, we're complete now? Okay, we're complete now. Resolution passes. Mr. Hyde?
I would just like to say that I believe this property was obtained through the office of Rob Malone, through a bankruptcy proceeding, was it? In the state of Nevada. We were lucky. I think he did an excellent job in securing this property for sale.
Concur. Thank you. Anyone else? We'll move on now. 23, correct?
18. Ways and Means authorizing an agreement with Mohawk Valley Consulting Associates.
This resolution authorizes an agreement of Mohawk Valley Consulting Associates to provide an employee assistance program. I need a motion. Mr. Russell, second by Mr. Smith. Anyone else? Any comments? Mr. Russell?
Mr. Chairman, this is a program that we do not have to do. However, we found in the past that having someone, or in this case an agency there for our employees to be able to talk about matters that might be happening within their working situation or within their personal life is certainly beneficial to them. It's open up to everybody. And I think this is the second year of the program. That is correct. And we found some good results from the first year, and we wanted to continue it this year to see how it goes. But like I said, it gives our employees an outlet to be able to talk to somebody in regards to any personal matters, any work case matters, or any kind of assistance in that regard that they might.
Anyone else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The resolution passes. Number 24.
The Natural Resources Committee authorizing the chairman of the legislature to sign and establish a dog quarantine.
This resolution authorizes the chairman to issue an order requiring all dogs in the county to be securely confined during the period of time designated in the order. May I have a motion? Mr. Hyde, second by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? All those in favor? Yes, Mr. Cordes.
As a brief addendum to this, Mr. Chairman, for the sportsmen out there, there is a chronic wasting disease that is starting to affect deer. And the DEC wants to know of anybody that may find deer acting strangely or whatnot, because they are trying to track to see if it could have an impact on the deer herd also. So I thought I'd add.
Thanks for that information, Mr. Cordes. Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Resolution passes. Number 25.
Public Safety Emergency Management amending Resolution 338 of 2011 appointing coroner.
This resolution amends Resolution Number 338 of 2011 to reflect the correct term of the coroner's appointment. May I have a motion? Mr. Hendricks, second by Mr. Hyde and Mr. Ackerman. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Resolution passes. Number 26.
Administration, Veterans Affairs, reappointing county administrator.
This resolution reappoints James Wallace as Herkimer County Administrator for the term of 3 years. May I have a motion? Mr. Hyde, second by Mrs. Manine. Let's start with that. It's, I believe, unanimous. Everyone else. Mr. Ackerman, Mr. Corse, Mr. Johnson, Schrader. Any opposition? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say nay. Unanimous. Resolution passes.
We should talk for a while.
And now sports with Rob Malone.
How to ride a bicycle.
Chairman of the Legislature, I want to thank you for your vote of confidence. I'm not a great speaker, but every time I do give a speech, I say, how honored I truly am to be able to serve in this position. I really enjoy working with the Legislature, with the department heads, with the staff to try to do things to make the county a little bit better. Again, thank you.
Let me just say that you're a great asset to our county, and your wealth of knowledge surpasses many people, and you're very valuable to it. And we appreciate all the hard work you do, along with the staff that you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Number 27.
It's Public Safety, Emergency Management, and Administration Veterans Affairs requesting student enrollment policy changes for emergency fire training.
This resolution requests the state to revise its minimum student requirements for volunteer emergency fire training courses. May I have a motion? Mr. Hendricks, Mr. Koplinski, and Mrs. Manine, seconds. Any discussion? Yes, Mr.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say this was spurred by one of the local fire instructors, and there's a need in the state right now for them to relieve their qualifications for the courses. Not qualifications, but the amount of students that are involved in the course. Right now, there's a 12 to 15 minimum in the fire training classes, and a lot of times, because of the volunteer fireman status, they're finding it increasingly hard to get those 12 or 15 that they need as a minimum to hold these classes. So this will allow, or hopefully, the state will, relieve those requirements, and if the 5 show up, then the class can continue. Right now, we have people on waiting lists, anywhere from 6 to 8 months, waiting to be trained, and they can't be trained because there's a, the maximum is, or the minimum isn't met in those classes. So this would allow those instructors to take on a smaller class and continue the training, much-needed training by the fire service. So with that, the motion was made and second, right? Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Number 28.
That is Ways and Means, Public Safety Emergency Management, authorizing contract with Bar Association for Defense of Indigent Persons.
This resolution authorizes an agreement with the Herkimer County Bar Association for the administration of the coordinated plan for the defense of indigent persons. May I have a motion? Mr. Russell, second by Mr. Hendricks. Mr. Russell, discussion.
Yeah, we went over this resolution prior in one of our meetings, but I was handed this resolution of the Herkimer County Bar Association that I thought was quite interesting. And it says, whereas the Herkimer County Bar Association, having held its annual meeting on December 20th, 2011, upon notice to members for purposes of considering various business of the County Bar Association, whereas the Bar Association, having previously resolved at a meeting on October 7, 1965, that it shall provide legal services of private counsel for indigent persons under the Article 18B of the county law. And then it just goes on to say that they elected Keith D. Bowers to be their representative for this. But this goes back to 1965, where the legislature, was that a legislature? Maybe you know that. But my point of it is that back then they realized that to do it this way, to have one person administrating this program was far better than having a full-blown public defender's office. If we had a full-blown public defender's office right now, we'd have to have staff, we'd have to have the attorneys. It would just cost a lot of money. This program does cost a lot of money. We have about $400,000 in, the line item for it, but it would be a lot more than that. And I'm not exactly sure what those figures would be, but it would be huge. This is the first year. In previous years, this person, elected person by the Bar Association, they pick them, has been an employee of the county. It didn't start out that way. We're not quite sure exactly how that person became an employee, but the person did become an employee. This year, the person is not going to be an employee, and this resolution spells out what the contractual needs of the individual are. And so, if you've noticed, we went over this before, they're going to be paid $34,434. It includes a health insurance benefit and a liability insurance benefit, and if for some reason malpractice premiums need to be paid, it's also within this resolution as well. And we've had discussion in regards to, whether a health insurance benefit is something that we would really like to pursue. In this case, it was brought to us in regards to the contract that they wanted. And so obviously it's within this resolution. I believe, and we can certainly check on this more next year when we get to the a new contract, that I believe it certainly would be going up the fee of $34,000 if we didn't provide this. I'm hesitant, but yet I'd like to see how it worked, and I just move for its adoption. Anybody obviously has any questions, feel free to ask somebody who was back there in 1965.
All right, thank you. Any other things, Mr. Rose?
Mr. Chairman, I did question this at the committee meeting, and when we talk about the health insurance, we know this year, I don't know this individual, I assume this is not the same individual as 1965. I don't know. So it has been something that's perpetuated itself. I understood Mr. Russell to say at one point the person wasn't an employee, then they were an employee, whoever the capacity of the person who did this, and then they're not an employee now. There's a couple of concerns I had on this, not the least of which is health insurance this year, if it happened to be family coverage, $18,800 is the assessed premium, I guess as we call it. So we're talking $53,034. Now, I do understand that this particular individual, and I guess this is the same one I'm talking about, as an employee, was probably making probably 30-something. I didn't look that up, actually. I don't really know what he was making. And he received the state retirement system, and he received the health insurance, et cetera. Now, the Bar Association certainly probably is within their purview to say who they nominate, but it's up to us to decide what that salary would be. And I am very concerned that we not be in the practice of providing health insurance to independent contractors. And from what I understand from my brief conversation with Mr. Wallace tonight, this individual has been deemed, after consult with Mr. Wallace and Mr. Billings and the county attorney, to be appropriately determined to be an independent contractor. And as such, if he was described in previous years and he paid into the retirement system, or we certainly paid into the retirement system, I'd be interested to know how that would get corrected. And Mr. Wallace tells me that we have sought information to see how to correct that. But the Bar Association acknowledges that this is the person they want to do this. We accept that, but we establish the salary. So I would say to you that doing the health insurance is not wise, because I have certainly been a very vocal opponent to health insurance to part-time elected county officials. But this is way over the top when we're starting to give it to contractors. And I am also concerned that it's my understanding that this individual ceased to be an employee and became a contractor in early summer, perhaps. And we weren't advised. Now, I understand that in November there was a Ways and Means Committee meeting on a Thursday morning, and I happened to miss that one. And this contract, I guess, was discussed then, and I haven't reviewed the minutes. I would assume perhaps that it was passed at the time. But I don't even understand how we gave health insurance to an independent contractor without it being brought before this body. I mean, that's rather alarming to me, because it is a significant change in practice. And I asked Mr. Wallace, and he told me it was done administratively. I do think we need to understand when such things are appropriately done administratively. I think we should have been advised at the time. If the Bar Association didn't tell us anything until December, I have to, or November, even if that's when the conversation came down, what form of discussion took place to have the individual no longer be an employee, become a contractor, have a deal made with health insurance and malpractice insurance, and if we can't give him his malpractice insurance, then we're going to give him more money to make up for whatever the increased costs are. I just question how it happened, and if it wasn't necessary then, why is it necessary now? I'm inclined to think it is certainly necessary for us to know about it now. I'm not going to vote yes on this, because if you decided what that salary was and let it stand on its own merit, but to marry health insurance with it when we are uncertain of the escalating costs and the impact on us, I don't think we should be extending that to outside contractors. Thank you.
Any more debate? Sure.
I will be supporting this motion simply because, you know, indigent defense is important, and I trust my friends in the Bar Association, and I have to assume, since who would know better, the Bar Association, I guess, whether an independent contractor can lawfully get health insurance. I thought that may be an issue, apparently it isn't. And I also agree with Mrs. Rhodes that certainly, I wasn't on the legislature at the time, but I would hope in the future something like that. Somebody wouldn't be changed from employee to independent contractor, an important job like this, without the legislator being advised and having some input.
Any more debate? All those in favor say aye.
Can I have a roll call vote, Mr. Chairman, please?
I'm going to allow it, but I'm just going to ask you, next time anyone wants a roll call, just please signify that earlier this way, because once the vote is taken, technically, it's taken, and we shouldn't be retaking.
Well, I raised the issue before the vote.
Well, I mentioned a few people said aye, but I'm going to allow it this time, but
Thank you,
just for future reference, okay? So, roll call, please.
Mr. Hyde.
Yeah.
Brzezinski.
No.
Smith.
Yes.
Bono.
Yes.
Ackerman.
Yes.
Kaplinski.
Yes.
Corse.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Weekly.
Yes.
Hartman.
Yes.
Rose. Schrader.
Yes.
Manine.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Complete.
14.
Resolution passes. Number 29.
Public Safety Emergency Management, Ways and Means, authorizing legal proceedings by the county against the Village of Herkimer.
This resolution authorizes litigation to commence against the Village of Herkimer in connection with the village's proposed amendment in its zoning ordinance. May I have a motion? Mr. Hyde, second by Mr. Hendricks, Mr. Ackerman, Mr. Smith, or Mr. Weaver, I'm sorry. Any more, any comments? Mr. Hart?
Yes, as you may know, I was on the village board at the time this zoning amendment was proposed, and I proposed it for a number of reasons, it was made to address concerns raised by residents, taxpayers, that include but are not limited to the ever-shrinking village tax base, the drain on resources, including available commercial property, and quality of life issues. And I heard a lot of that from my constituents. And actually, in Mohawk, this when I was knocking on doors, there was no support for this jail. I did hear a comment during the committee that somehow the village is the reason for the county's wasting of money on this thing. First of all, I'd like to point out that the county doesn't even own the property they're talking about. The village's zoning amendment is good public policy, is consistent with their community development strategic plan, is lawful, timely, and will be upheld. Remember the body, its legal department, administration, claims the Village of Herkimer is to blame for the fact that the county has wasted enormous amounts of taxpayers' money. We're chasing a dream, going down a path that village officials and residents and taxpayers have cautioned against from the beginning. That claim that the village is responsible for this waste of money is baseless. As for the fact that the village zoning amendment is taking place at a bad time, I will remind you again that the county does not even own the property. And Vice Chairman, well, then Vice Chairman Bono and our current chairman, in his statement to the village board suggesting that we do not pass this zoning ordinance, mentioned, quote, "We are presently doing additional testing to determine whether we can avoid taking title to the front portion of the premises so it can be commercially developed and generate tax revenues for the village, school district, and county." I did have to point out at the village board meeting that the property that the county leaders are proposing to allow the current owner to keep is contaminated. So that's supposed to be interpreted by the board, the village board, this body, and the public as a kind-hearted gesture. It doesn't seem so to me. I can assure you that this litigation is another waste of money. In the end, the village of Herkimer, its taxpayers, and its residents will prevail.
Any other comments? Mr. President.
Mr. Chairman, does anybody know how much has been expended to this point in regards to whereas number 5 on this resolution?
Well, we have a running figure.
I would say probably up to $300,000. Looking at Mr. Becker.
I don't know what where is number 5, is on the project?
Yes.
That's what I'm looking at.
Acquisition and development.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how much was that?
300,000.
I can get the exact number.
All right, we can get that for you. Mrs. Rose.
The whereas that follows that says the proposed amendment of the village zoning ordinance would cause substantial expense and delay to the county of Herkimer if allowed to be enacted. What would be that expense and how long do you think the delay would be?
Well, if there are delays, I think everyone has to anticipate expenses, and there are any number of possible and potential expenses, some of which would be very, very substantial indeed if interest rates changed, if there are additional costs in connection with architects or other parties. And I suppose I could go on and on. As far as the delay, it's difficult to predict how long the delay would be. It's how long it takes to work its way through the court system, and whether such court proceedings, how long they last. A lot of ways court proceedings end, who knows?
Anyone else, anyways, guys?
Follow-up, I didn't get an answer.
I'm sorry?
The resolution says, whereas proposed amendment of the village zoning ordinance, that the amendment would cause substantial expense and delay. I mean, if the amendment were successful, it will cost us more money? And I don't know what that paragraph means. Are we suggesting that if the village wins, it will cost?
Yes, please.
Yeah, the amendment calls for changing the zoning on the site. Recall the county has stayed in the rear portion of the parcel where there was no zoning problem. And now at this late date, the village, after the county has commenced litigation in connection with the sewer issue, has decided, when we're way down the road on this, to try to zone the county out of using the rear portion where there was no zoning problem before. So that amendment, if it took effect, would certainly cause, likely cause further court proceedings and delays.
So we're going to sue,
Just address the chair, please.
Mr. Chairman, we're going to then sue to block the zoning. We've spent $300,000, up to $300,000. If, and this is to attempt to subvert the attempt of the village to zone it. And if we lose this challenge, the county loses this challenge, then we're left with what recourse?
We start again.
So do we continue to expense money on the idea that we're going to win? Is that, are we still spending while anticipation of this?
See what the options are in the legislature will decide.
As Mr. Malone was telling me, it depends on what the options are to the legislature at that time, and we'll move on.
No, I'm saying right now, if we're going into litigation though, are we still spending money pending the outcome of this litigation on the jail? Are we still expending money with this looming?
Sure. I mean,
We will continue to do that.
sure.
So we will rest.
Let me have a comment here. This is not uncommon. On a $30+ million project, it is not uncommon to spend this kind of money on studies, on testing, on architectural, issues. I don't know how many of you have built things in the past, but this is not. I've had a little background in it, and there's contingencies. You buy pieces of property, there's contingencies that there's water on it, that there's drainage on it. This is done all the time. So to say that we're spending money frivolously or we should be buying the property first. Well, I'm not going to buy a piece. To me, I don't think we should be buying a piece of property and then finding out we can't do anything on it. Find out if you can do what you need to do on it, then purchase it. I just think that's the prudent way to go. Anyone else? Debate. Mrs. Rose.
With what you say, I can appreciate that can be when you're developing an area. But when you don't own the land and you continue, and I can appreciate you've got contingencies, can you get water, can you get sewer? But we are going simultaneously with the design and development of this jail. And I remember being in committees here where you and others have mentioned, we can't design the jail until we know where we're going to put it. And the question on where you're going to put it is still up in the air, and yet we are proceeding to design a jail to go on property
Absolutely.
that you don't know that you can do.
Absolutely. A lot of that design can go to the next site.
It can, I thought it was site specific.
No, some of it is site-specific, the sewer, drainage, and things like that. But as far as the layout, if it's pretty much a flat piece of land, the layout is the layout. It's the bottom line. And so why waste that time, in that regard? Continue on. This is time sensitive. You know, we're wasting, if we have to waste more time on this project, you know, building costs go up, interest rates go up, we're not doing the taxpayer any, now's the time to build it, I think. Any more discussion?
Just one comment to that, Mr. Rowe, if I might.
Mrs. Rowe.
Maybe the best way would have been to find a site that was not so contentious with the public, and perhaps it could have
They're all
been
gonna be
property that the county
contentious.
owned.
So, any other comments? Take the vote.
Roll call,
Just-
Mr. Chairman, please.
Roll call vote.
Krasinski.
No.
Smith.
Yes.
Bono.
Yes.
Ackerman.
Yes.
Kaplinski.
Yes.
Horst.
No.
Russell.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yes.
Weekly.
Yes.
Hartman.
No.
Rose. No. Schrader.
No.
Manine.
Yes.
Johnson.
No.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Hyde.
Yes.
Complete. The resolution passes.
Mr. Chairman, what was that vote total?
10 yeses and
And yes, and 6
6
no.
noes. We'll now go to committee, comments by the legislature. Mrs. Rose.
Mr. Chairman, I think this will come as no surprise. The minority party has met and discussed the consequences of the chairman's decision to place people on committees. And we would like to address that through this legislative body of 17. We're hoping by motion now to resolve this full legislature into a committee of the whole, so that committee can consider the minority's position of requiring that in the 10 committees that this legislature has, that a minority be present on each committee. Within the committee of the whole, if we're successful in finding 9 people in this room that are willing to give it a proper airing in a committee of the whole, we can do that, and we will present the reasons why we believe that it's a fair and equitable thing to do. And therefore, I make a motion that this legislature resolve itself, consistent with the rules of the legislature, into a committee of the whole, so that we can then address the position of the minority to have a legislative minority on each of the committees. I make that motion.
There's a motion to go to the committee of the whole by Rose. May I have a second?
Yes.
You made the second. Mr. Hartman made the second.
So second.
Mr. Brzezinski also. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr.
There's
Chairman,
no debate on this.
roll call vote, please.
Okay. Any debate? I thought there was no debate.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Forrest.
Mr. Chairman, I served 2-year term as chairman of this legislature. And I did place someone, in fact, I placed a Democrat on as chairman of the committee. But when we choose a chairman, our rules say he chooses the committees. And when a vote goes for you to serve as chairman, it means you serve as chairman, and our rules say you appoint the committees. So this vote here is basically whether you are to be our chairman or not. That's very simply put. That's what this is. This is basically a vote of confidence, whether we still have the confidence in you to name committees. So that's what this vote is to me.
Thank you, Mr. Court.
I respectfully disagree with Mr. Court. I don't think it's a referendum or a vote on confidence in the chair. In fact, the rules go beyond just stating that the chairman appoints a committee. The rules also state that a member of the town of Herkimer must be on a particular committee, so it's not all chairman driven. I agree the chairman should have power, and the rules have given them this. I also agree that with the statement that was made by the chair at the inauguration, that I will find. Anyhow, the chair mentioned how important we were. We all got to work together. This is not Democrats, Republicans. I don't have a quote right in front of me, but some of you heard it yesterday. And there is precedent for having a minority member on each committee, as our historian, Mr. Brzezinski, brought to my attention yesterday. I don't know if that was by law or just by good public policy. In any event, I think it is good public policy. There are some specific rules addressing who can sit on a certain committee, such as the county or the properties committee. I think it's a good way to get on the right foot, and it will fit your goals, Mr. Chairman, is making everybody a part of it. And as you stated, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue.
Anyone else? Mr. Brzezinski.
Mr. Chairman, I go back to 1980, the book that I brought in here yesterday. You would see in that book that there was a minority member on every one of those committees, and the special committees also. And it was done fairly. I myself never asked to be put on certain committees. Whatever the chairman did at that time, remember this, Lenny, probably, wherever the chairman put us, that's where we went. At least that's what happened to me. And I still believe that, you know, you possibly can change your mind, or people in here can realize that there are sometimes two sides to every story. And sometimes on a committee, to have a minority on that committee would bring a little bit of debate during committee that maybe would keep it off the floor. And I think it would be a good idea if a minority member would be put on every single one of these committees. Thank you very much.
I think that there's a parliamentary question here that we have a few comments made on why there should be minorities on the committee. The motion that I made was that we resolve ourselves in the committee of the whole, and within that committee have the discussion about whether there should be a minority on either committee. There could be people in this room that do not believe that that's necessary, but by voting to resolve ourselves in the committee of the whole, we then take committee action, either yes or no. That's really what my motion was about, not to have the first vote to be whether you support a minority or you don't support a minority. My motion is to resolve this legislature into a committee of the whole per our rules, and then take up the question. And I really, I have certainly a great deal of dialogue that I would like to add to the merits of why I believe it should be so, but I would rather deal with the parliamentary procedure. I guess there could be a feeling that if there are not 9 people in this room who are willing to resolve ourselves into a committee of the whole, we will never get an appropriate airing of the merits. I'm going to trust, I'm going to hope that there are 9 people out of the 16 of us that are here that would be willing to have us be a committee of the whole, to then consider as a committee whether the proposition offered by the Democrats is valid or not. I recognize and I respect democracy and the rule of the majority. So I would ask that we keep our topic on this, on whether we should resolve ourselves in the committee of the whole.
Mr. Russell.
Yeah, frankly, Mr. Chairman, I've never in my last 6 years heard anybody not have the ability to speak at any of the committee meetings that we've had. When I first got in, the committees acted as committees, and you really didn't get an opportunity to speak unless you were recognized by the chair, and usually you had to go to the chair beforehand to ask for permission. Now, there was some issues, I remember, hospice, they got a little bit heated, and we had some good dialogue, but frankly, I'm not in favor of making three people here a little bit more special than the other 14 that are here. So I certainly will not vote either way. Yes, for either going into the committee of the whole, or if we do, to extend a victim status on those people who feel that they're being disenfranchised, because they certainly had the opportunity to speak at any time they wished.
Anyone else? Mr. Henry.
I'm just wondering if this should be referred to the proper committee first, before going into the committee of the whole.
The motion was made and seconded. We're going to vote. Let me just make a comment. I concur with Mr. Russell's statements. We have, in Herkimer County, a very liberal committee system. Everyone is allowed to speak. You go to other agencies or other governments, it's usually the committee that speaks. You speak through that committee, either through the chair or through another committee member. We do not deny anyone the right to speak here, even on this floor tonight. Everyone has that privilege. I grant that privilege. And it's granted at the committee level. Now, if that committee decides to change those rules, that's up to that committee, under our rules. But right now, everyone has a vote on the floor. This is where it matters, on the floor. At that committee level, you can vent your issues, your comments, whatever. So to say that you don't have any voice for the people you represent, I think is a lie. And that's my opinion. Mrs. Rose.
Mr. Chairman, it's apparent to me by the comments that have been made that I won't get an opportunity within the committee of the whole. I don't want to prejudge anyone's vote, but some key people who I felt might be willing to take us into a committee of the whole. It's apparent to me there probably are not 9 votes in this room. Therefore, I want to address something that you said. The 3 Democrats and obviously the 1 Republican who did vote against you for your chairmanship were the 4 individuals who were given 1 committee assignment. And not to impugn what those committees are, the Natural Resource Committee has Mr. Brzezinski, and Information Services has Mr. Herkimer and myself. Properties Committee has already determined that Mr. Schrader is there because he represents Herkimer and we're required to have someone there. So it's not lost that there seems to be a correlation between the vote for who was going to be chairman and then those committee assignments. The idea of a victim, I don't feel like a victim. I will never allow anyone here to assign me victim status. I represent the voters and the citizens that reside in Legislative District 2. And a very cursory add up of the 3 of us on the minority party, you're talking 10,000 citizens and maybe 6,000, 6,500 registered voters. If you add to it Mr. Schrader's area, we're talking 14,000 citizens perhaps that are represented by this. They elected us and they brought us here. We know how the committee structure works. You're right. I have raised my voice in committee, even sometimes when someone said discussion closed. I have been able to do it. It takes a tremendous amount of energy. I have that energy. However, in our structure, the committees are the ones that decide the topics that they will discuss. I can bring something up in a committee. There's no requirement that the committee address the issue. I do not have the ability to say no within the committee. I do not have the ability to sit myself or my minority peers to sit in perhaps and ask a question during an interview process or to have any input on how a department may be operating. Yes, we vote in this room. And yes, I appreciate tonight that you brought out the chairman and you had them cover some of the issues. I think those are positive changes, but you missed the boat. You missed the boat in trying to restrict and use committees as a plum. There are people in this room when they campaigned were touting how many committees they serve on like they were elected to those committees. We know that's not the case. We sit here and we have 3 legislators that serve on 6 committees, very prime committees, Mr. Smith, Mr. Corse, and Mr. Pavlinsky. Granted, they represent many years of experience. We have 4 legislators who sit on 5 committees, Mr. Mano, Mr. Ackerman, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Weekly. Both Mr. Ackerman and Mr. Shaw came on this legislature at the time that I did. We have 3 legislators that sit on 4 committees, Mr. Russell, Mr. Hyde, and Mrs. Manini. We have 2.
Get to your point.
I think the point is when anyone were to look at a grid such as this, it was clear that there is an attempt to exclude us from the committee structure, and I'm trying to figure out why. 1 vote out of a committee of 7 does not sway the vote. It does not take away the majority right. So you're quoted as saying 2 things. That you put us, and I assume you mean those of us that returned, on the same committees we were on, and of course we know that's not true. Mr. Brzezinski is a veteran of the military service. He has served for many years on the Administration of Veterans Committee, and you, in whatever judgment, infinite reason, have decided that he should no longer serve on a Veterans Committee. You have now a Veterans Committee, perhaps with 1 veteran. Not that the others aren't noble in being able to address veterans' needs, but the action that you took to remove someone of 30-plus years of service. You chose to do that. You've chosen to ignore, within the committee structure, which you so proudly tout as working so well in Herkimer County, to take representation away. And there's really, other than retribution, you have not explained it.
No representation was taken away. You're allowed to speak, whether you sit on the committee or not, and you bring, it doesn't matter. You're saying it doesn't matter. You just told me it doesn't matter.
Mr. Chairman,
If you're allowed to vote. You can bring anything to the committee. Entertain, petition that chair to bring it to, and if you have enough votes, it'll carry. It's plain and simple. That's it.
That's not true, though,
Any more
Mr.
today?
Bono. That's not true, Mr. Bono. It's
Yes,
not
it
the
is.
vote. If you have enough votes, you're not giving the minority a vote, is my point.
You have a voice. You have a voice. The vote that counts is here. Mr. Proplinski.
Wish to call the motion.
Call the motion.
Actually,
Motion was made to call. And then second. Mr. Weekly, Mr. Hendricks. Need a vote on that? All in favor to call the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
One no. Now, we will vote on the original. All those in favor?
Roll call vote, please.
Roll call, it was mentioned before. Roll call.
Mr. Chairman, can you just explain what this roll call is? Is this the...
This is the original amendment that Mrs., the original resolution that Mrs. Rose proposed.
To go into
Into a committee of the whole.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Lalonde, call the roll.
Mrs. Rose.
Yes, to go into committee of the whole.
Schrader.
Yes.
Manine.
No.
Johnson.
No.
Hendricks.
No.
Hyde.
No.
Brzezinski.
Yes.
Smith.
No.
Bono.
No.
Ackerman.
No.
Kaplinski.
No.
Corse.
No.
Russell.
No.
Shaw.
No.
Weekly.
No.
13.
Oh, Mr. Hartman.
No. Or yes, I mean, I'm sorry.
4 yes votes, the resolution fails. Any other comments by legislators? Mrs. Rose.
Mr. Chairman, I hope that we will be better informed. I wrote to, and you indicated that Mr. Smith will be having a meeting. I wrote to Mr. Wallace today because I received calls, and then I placed some calls, to find out that the CHA initiative that we have with the at-home care program may well have been modified. And I understand that the department head in public health announced to staff there that the deal with at-home care is perhaps off the table because of some action taken by the Department of Health. That brings a great deal of concern to staff, to citizens, and it brings concern to me as a legislator that we have a department head that would be reporting to staff something extremely significant and we don't know about it. We know that last March, this legislature voted to sell our child license to at-home care, and I believe the net result was $150,000 we should be getting. And I'm told at this point in time that the state of New York has changed their rules and will allow other entities to enter counties and not have to worry about licensing. I don't know what part of that is true or not, because we've not heard it officially within the confines, but apparently we have a department head that would report that to staff without us knowing it. I would ask that we very quickly have a meeting be brought up to speed. If the administrator has known about this, then we should have known about it. And there's instant communication on so many things, and we certainly should know about the future of the Certifying Home Health Agency and the long-term care program. And I hope that you will be addressing this and can give us any update right now on the status. Thank you.
Obviously, Mr. Chairman, we've been concerned about the same issue. We've been on top of it. We've talked to the people at home care. I'm sure that Mr. Wallace would be happy to give us the information that we know of as of right now. First of all, if you could talk about what the state is doing, and second of all, as long as it's okay with Mr. Malone, it's contractual, I assume it's okay, to talk about the discussions that have taken place with at-home care. I mean, it's unfortunate that the department head made those comments prior to Mr. Smith's meeting, but we do have answers, so.
I will say that, of course, you can go into executive session if you're discussing matters of this type. If we're going into issues that involve negotiations or credit history or performance of a particular corporation. It would be, but it doesn't mean you have to, and I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into an executive.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion was made by Mr. Corr, second by Mr. Henry, to go in executive session. Please address the chair.
I wanted to
Roll
do it
call.
quick before you said all in favor.
Okay, just raise your hand. Roll call.
Smith. This is to go into an executive
Go in
session.
executive session, yes. Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Bono.
Yes.
Ackerman.
Yes.
Peplinsky.
Yes.
Horst.
Yes.
Russell.
Yes.
Shaw.
Yeah.
Weekly.
Yes.
Hartman.
No.
Rose.
No.
Schrader.
Yes.
Manine.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Hendricks.
Yes.
Hyde.
Yes.
Brzezinski.
No.
We'll go into executive session. I'll ask the public. We're still in session. We're still in session. I will address this. We'll reconvene. Comments by Mrs. Rose.
Mr. Chairman, just for anybody in the room, many left, we've got a very important straw vote tomorrow night on the school systems with Italy and Herkimer, Frankfurt, and Mohawk. And I hope people come on out, and I, for one, hope they come out and support the initiative.
Funny you mentioned that because I had that on my agenda also to mention. It's a historic vote, folks, so if you can get out tomorrow, not just you, but anyone you bump into, whether you're for or against, it'll change the course of education in Herkimer County. Yes, Mr. Hyde.
I'd like to ask once again that we have a moment of silent prayer before each of our meetings until our military personnel are back home again. Seems like every day, every week, you lose 2 or 3 people.
I have no problem with that.
I think it's the least we can do. Can you see if we go to committee?
Yes, we refer to committee first to approve.
Yeah, I was unclear of what happened. Were we asked to do that? We denied that?
Yes.
No action. I've asked 3 times, Jack.
Okay.
We'll bring it to committee. It would be under Mrs. Manning's committee. Gene?
I never recall.
All right.
I'll bring it to committee.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anyone else making any comment?
Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
I just want to let everybody know, I was only chose to be on one committee. Am I upset with it? I'm disappointed, yes. But to assure my constituents, a few of them are here, and for Video World, I will be at every committee. I will be at every committee meeting to assure my people, my constituents, that my voice is heard on every decision that's made for them. And that's my point on that.
As we all will.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mrs. Rose?
I don't know why the college isn't here tonight. Do we know why?
Are they in session?
Next time, turn around, face the camera.
I don't know if the college is. Usually when they're in session, they're here. When they're not.
I'd like to commend the concerned citizens and Mr. Drumm for the effort that they're putting into keeping our citizens informed. And I had the occasion to go out onto their webpage, and I don't think I looked up under yours, Mr. Russell. I think I looked up under theirs, the Concerned Citizens for a Better Herkimer County, and watched it. And someday, maybe if you come up with a windfall, or maybe the legislature will decide to give you a grant for an even better camera, but I would like to commend them for doing it. I think that they have broadened their focus, and I think that we can only have better government as a result of their ability to put on YouTube our legislative meetings and our committee meetings. It just helps keep it informed. Thank you.
I did see what happened with the college camera guy.
I did see what happened to the college cameraman. Rob pushed him out the window.
Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I was just curious if there was any, what's his name, Rob? If there was any way that you could share that with the college. And I also think, isn't the equipment right in the other room over here? Or did they take that back? We're not gonna.
Yeah, well, I don't.
That's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
But it's here?
Correct.
Well, if I update.
I mean, you turn the camera on pretty much, you
Well,
know?
I really had a college.
I think Mrs. Lalonde could do that.
The equipment that they record on, we had one session that was not on television, and then somebody called me and asked me, and I said, I don't know, and I did call Dr. Murray, and she indicated that the equipment that they have to use, and I think it's the broadcast equipment, not so much that thing that's on the cart, and I'm not technologically qualified, but they, despite my placement on that committee, and they, she had indicated that equipment is being Band-Aid held together, and we could well come to the point where there will be opportunities, missed opportunities, that we won't receive the broadcast over Channel 99. And I think we should all be concerned with that, and I'm hoping that they can figure out a grant or something to remedy it. Maybe that's a good homeland security, is to buy the necessary equipment to keep citizens informed. Thank you.
Anyone else? Motion to adjourn. Everyone. Bruce Levine and Mr. Schrader.
Who's the second?
Schrader, Johnson, second.